Hi, I'm Henry Louis Gates Jr. I'm the host of Finding Your Roots, and I'm here with Ryan Woods, the new CEO of American Ancestors. Congratulations on your new job, my brother.
Thank you.
4.5 million people watch Finding Your Roots every week. Why?
I think it gets back to that innate yearning to understand where we came from and to make a connection. Make a connection to the past, make a connection to our fellow humans today, and to add something to the future. And the compelling way in which you present stories on Finding Your Roots is an inspiration to people. People want to have that experience. And we're proud to offer that in many different forms at American Ancestors. Now, we don't put all those people on TV, of course, but that opportunity to learn something about yourself and to connect to a larger community of people is that life-enriching experience that I talk about in family history. And it gives you an opportunity not only to have some self-discovery, but you have conversations with your older relatives, your younger relatives, and it can also bring history alive.
When did you become interested in your own family tree, for example?
Well, I've had the opportunity to know older relatives. I knew my grandparents well on my mother's side, and I was in an environment where family history was part of the regular conversation. And so I was able to hear the stories of my ancestors and begin to understand what the power and promise of family history can be. And, I happen to have a diverse family history myself. On my mother's side, it's colonial New England going back to the 17th century. My father was born in Asia to a black U.S. serviceman and a Korean woman. And so I have this broad global ancestry, and family history has given me an opportunity to be a better citizen.
Do you like the idea boxes or not?
It's a way to try to have a bit of sense of identity, and I've often thought about what it means to be other. And with my own background, it's something, as I mentioned earlier, that I struggled with for a long time. But now I'm happy to talk about what other means, because I'm able to make these connections with so many different people and communities that it's a sense of and source of pride now. But being able to think about even those questions, where you have to sort of figure out, who am I?
Right.
And who am I, is part of what am I? And those explorations and that discovery is part of the joy and the empowerment of doing family history. There are studies that were done at Emory University that looked at the family history process with young people. And there were 20 questions that the psychologists at Emory came up with. And they said the more questions that a young person could answer, the better educational and social, psychological well-being outcomes for that child.
You mean the more questions they could answer about their own family tree?
Exactly right. And it wasn't so much the exact facts of those answers, but what it represents is that you're in a community in which those questions are asked, those stories are told. And when you look at the evidence around being in an environment where family stories are told and what those positive benefits are, it leads to an elevated purpose for family history. And it's one of the reasons that we have recently launched a youth education program, a national youth education curriculum to teach inclusive history through genealogy. I think that family history plays an important part in the social science curriculum, that it personalizes history, that it gives school children an opportunity to see history not as some static event that happened to other people, but that's part of my story.
Right.
And
It brings archival research to life.
yes, so having access to those records, thinking about our 10 Million Names Project. It's called the 10 Million Names Project because there are an estimated 10 million men, women, and children of African descent who were enslaved in what is now the United States. Cumulatively. And the institution of slavery, in many cases, erased those names. But we've found places where you can recover those names. You can restore those stories, and you can begin to remember those people. And that's not just something that happens in enslaved populations. We see this in immigrant populations. So the evolution of our organization from the early days of English ancestors and Mayflower and first families of Virginia and things of that nature has evolved over time to include our Historic Catholic Records Project, which we launched because there were a number of immigrant populations, French Canadian, Irish, Lithuanian, German, Polish, whose only written records existed within their parish community. Those records still exist, and they're amazing treasure troves of information. And so we've been able to do this with our Jewish Heritage Center by making accessible the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society records, which go back to the mid-19th century through the 20th century, where they capture the stories of families and their struggles to make it to freedom, to live in a place where they wouldn't be persecuted. And so the evolution of our organization has been to highlight the stories, the names, because names bring humanity. Names give agency. And so digitizing and making accessible records is at the core of the work that allows people to access the benefits of family history.
Do you think we're trapped by ancestry? Do you think that we're trapped into the patterns of behavior and belief that our ancestors practice? I'm sure that's one reason that some people just don't want to know. And some people do worry about that. If you found out that your great-grandfather was a criminal, and sometimes we found that, does that mean you've inherited the criminal gene? Or do you know what I'm trying to say?
I don't believe that ancestry is destiny. It was Mark Twain who said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes.
Yeah, right.
And I think what exploring family history does is that it gives us a framework for understanding where we can make decisions. We're all independent agents who can use this information, and maybe we can learn something from a criminal ancestor, or we learn something that upsets us about the actions or a certain trajectory that is seemingly taking place, that we all have the opportunity to make a difference. But that information is an important part of making a change. Truth matters. Information, more information, is never a bad thing. And so I think to the extent that there are social impacts, present social impacts, that family history plays a role in giving us a certain amount of information and opportunity to make change.
10 million names. Tell me about this intriguing project.
The 10 Million Names Project was officially launched last year as an evolving effort of our organization. And its aim is to identify by name as many of the 10 million men, women, and children who were enslaved in this country as possible, and to try to make connections to their descendants. And this is an effort to amplify the work that individuals and families and institutions have been doing for centuries. But as the oldest genealogical organization in the country, we have an infrastructure to help this process. We have a staff and a building and a technical infrastructure where we can help to provide access to what has been done before, to shine light on that tremendous effort, but also because of our staff experts, we can do new research to help uncover record sources, to make connections, to expose this history to the some 44 million African Americans in this country.
What happens if a regular person walks in on Newberry Street and says, I'm looking for my roots? Is there any hope for them to get help?
Absolutely. So we are a not-for-profit, member-based organization that has both a physical repository, a library and archive, and staff to help people with their research. And online, we're AmericanAncestors.org, where we offer more than 1 billion searchable records for people researching their family history. And we love to help people. In fact, the most satisfying results you get in the family history discovery process is when you work with a member of our staff. And so we're actually under construction right now on Newbury Street to build a new center, a visitor center, which we're calling the Family Heritage Experience, where people can come and begin to start their family history journey. It'll be an inquiry-based, interactive set of exhibitions that will teach people the family history process and excite them about the possibility. And we'll still have the traditional side of the library and archive where people can come in and use the collection, which is more than 28 million items in the manuscript collection and hundreds of thousands of volumes in the library. And because of the power and promise of family history and what you have meant to this process, when we reopen our facilities, it will be at the Henry Louis Gates Jr. building.
You are a brand new CEO. What's your vision? What is going to be the imprint that you put on American Ancestry? When we look back 10 years from now, and we'll say, this is what he did. This is how the organization changed. Give us your fantasy list.
Well, I am a temporary steward of this institution, and it is a tremendous professional privilege to be the new president and CEO of American Ancestors. And my vision is to lean into the power and promise of family history. And there are two particular ways in which I think we can unlock that power and promise. The first is to make more records available to people, that we will move across the country in partnership with individuals, with institutions, with commercial and non-secular partners to make available the records of our American ancestors and our ancestors from wherever they may come from, so that we have the opportunity to see our grandmother or grandfather's names, our great-great-grandparents' names, because those names, as I've said, give agency, they give humanity. They're a connection across time and place, and the incredible benefits of family history that you see when you're able to make a personal connection. So records are going to be key. The second part is access. We want to improve access to family history. So that means the technological side of things, from digitization. It means making available and explaining the benefits of DNA. And it means that we want to improve access to diverse communities, because family history is egalitarian, it's ecumenical, it's non-denominational. Everyone deserves the chance. And when we see the opportunities across age groups, from young people to families to aging populations, there are benefits across generations.
There's never been a better time to search for your ancestors?
Whenever we're able to help someone make a discovery, it's a tremendously powerful moment. And you're absolutely right that we are at a period where the political will, the technology, the interest, the democratization of access has come together to bring family history to so many more people. We were doing a program in Birmingham, Alabama last summer, and there was a young man who our staff was working with to help him start his family history journey. And he walked out of the room literally wiping tears from his eyes. And he said, "They're not just figments of my imagination anymore.
Huh.
I didn't come from nothing.
Yeah.
You gave me the names of my ancestors. I now know where I came from." And when you see that happen, whether it's someone who's just getting started or you make a discovery for someone who's always had a bit of an interest in family history, it's a tremendously powerful moment.